Awesome. You are good to go.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley. Let me put the slides up. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Geary. I'm with SpiderOak. I'm the Director of Inside Sales. I do have my colleague with me today, Adam Tervort, who is the VP of Customer Success. What we're going to cover today is SpiderOak in the zero trust space. A little bit of background before I pass it over to Adam. We are a cybersecurity software organization, right, that is heavily focused, not only in the government space, but there's some commercial use cases as well that we'll go through. But going to focus today on the government side of things, and just very excited to be here and contribute to what you guys are doing at ATARC. And I'm going to go ahead and get to the next slide here and pass that over to Adam.
Well, good morning, everybody. To start, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background about our company. SpiderOak was founded in 2007, and really the impetus behind the founding of this company was a desire to use zero-knowledge encryption across commercial software as a service. In particular, at the beginning, SpiderOak was focused on the backup space. Now, 2007 is a long time ago. This was, for some context, this was the year before the first iPhone came out and a couple of years before Dropbox offered their first version. Our founders had a strong security focus and a strong cryptography background, and they wanted to make sure that user data never left user devices before encryption. So our system, even starting in 2007, other than basic account metadata, there is no plain text data within the system. Now, as time has gone on, we've pivoted in a few different directions. Starting in 2011, we had a contract with NavAir in Pax River to provide them with a product called CloudSync, which was a version of our consumer backup product that was designed for enterprise environments. And we worked with NavAir from 2011 to 2019. Around that same time, we started to transition to a platform, a new underlying platform for our software. And that platform, we'll talk about in just a moment, kind of the idea behind the platform, but we wanted to make sure that no matter what kind of application, either we or others built on top of our platform, we had a couple of guiding principles: zero trust and zero knowledge. Encryption is very important and difficult to do right, and trusting infrastructure is always a mistake. Infrastructure is important for uptime, but trusting infrastructure just opens you up to so many different categories of vulnerabilities. Now, as you can see on this slide, we've had a couple of, a number of different opportunities within the federal government in the last few years. We've, in particular, worked with Trident Spectre. We demoed CrossClave, which is the application we'll talk about primarily today. And we've also worked closely in the last few years with various agencies and commercial partners on OrbitSecure. One thing to keep in mind as we talk about, we'll mention both CrossClave and OrbitSecure today in our presentation. Both of these applications, though, are built on the same platform. And this is, the platform is what gives both the unique security properties that we think are so important, as well as ensures zero trust across the environment that we operate in. So let's go on to the next slide and talk a little bit about core capabilities of the platform. We have three areas that we've focused hard on. The first one is identity management, the second is data segmentation, and the third is key management. Identity management is essential in collaborative systems. it's by driving security to the level of the data, we help ensure that, should there be a leak, should there be a breach, the data that is within the system is fully encrypted, and because of the encryption standards we use, a breach of the system only gets you encrypted data blocks that are encrypted in such a way that it would take a post-quantum computer hundreds or thousands of years to decrypt that data. So the next thing is identity management within the system. Humans are involved in all these collaborative systems, and outside of the technology, humans are a big risk factor. So we want to make sure that identity management is easy, so that onboarding and offboarding, changing user roles, these things are able to be done quickly, efficiently, and from the user perspective in a easy to accomplish method. This plays along with key management. I'm sure that all of you deal from time to time with the vagaries of managing keys, whether that's public private key encryption or other types of key management. We think that this is one of the things that both secures the system and makes life really hard for users. If you've ever tried to use encrypted email, which I'm sure all of you have, you know that key management can be one of the most difficult obstacles for end users to overcome. So we've designed our platform so that key management is as easy as possible for users while still being cryptographically robust, and especially making key rotation an easy to accomplish part of the system. As you add or remove people from the system, ensuring that keys are rotated in a timely manner helps to ensure data integrity. And we'll demonstrate this in our demo of CrossClave shortly, but within the system, whether it's CrossClave or OrbitSecure, the platform rotates keys in a dynamic method, meaning that as users are changed, either role changes or added and removed from the system, keys and re-encryption of data happens in the background in a dynamic method. Finally, data segmentation, need to know, is essential for any security system, and a efficient and convenient way to grant need to know is absolutely essential. In CrossClave, which again is aimed at end users, we accomplish this through segmentation of teams, and within a team, segmentation of spaces or channels. So we'll come back to these three concepts quite a few times throughout the presentation. Before we get into the use cases themselves, here's a little bit more about the platform and our specific applications. CrossClave, as I said, is a commercial off-the-shelf product. It covers everything from collaborative work on files, secure chat, both on desktop and on mobile, as well as video conferencing in an end-to-end encrypted environment. Kind of the magic sauce of CrossClave is that it works over various types of networks. It can be deployed either to a private cloud in an on-premise situation, or through our SaaS system that we have set up. We also have capability to deploy a private deployment onto GovCloud. And in the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about why we have that flexibility because of the way the system is designed. But we have a heavy emphasis on using arbitrary, untrusted networks to accomplish this human-to-human collaboration. Now, OrbitSecure has the same idea, but in more of an IoT situation. And the customers we've been working with so far on OrbitSecure are all in the space industry, whether that's on the government side or on the commercial side. So OrbitSecure uses the same principles to secure from the satellite level down through the ground station level down to the end consumer to secure data to and from space assets. This gives, because of the need to know segmentation, this also gives some interesting capabilities around having commercial assets with secure usage by government, where the asset owner does not know the tasking or the work product that's produced by the satellite because of the way the security segmentation works. But again, all of this is based on our platform, and the platform has some neat properties, not least of which is blockchain. And if you're like me, when you hear the word blockchain, you're probably groaning and thinking, these people have no idea what they're talking about. No, we're not running on the Ethereum chain or on, on Bitcoin. Blockchain turned out to be a tool in the platform that does an important job. We do not use public blockchains for any of this, both because when we have a high security environment, we don't want to use a public blockchain where anybody has access to the data blocks. But we did want to have an immutable ledger, and that's the blockchain part of our platform. Is metadata and actions within the system are committed in blocks. This gives a very robust ability to audit the system. And of course, since there's segmentation, you can have different levels of auditing. There's general auditing for things like user roles and user actions, who added who to a team, which individual users were added to which spaces, what are their roles within the spaces, who made changes to user roles, as well as on the individual space level. You can see things like which users uploaded a file, which users committed new versions of a file, which users interacted in chat. And this immutable ledger then gives a very clear audit trail across the system. So if there were a case where you needed to do some forensic auditing of something that had happened, the audit trail is there by nature of the private blockchain. Now, let me show you a little bit about the system diagram. I won't go into too much detail here, but if anybody's interested in this in the Q&A at the end, I'm happy to go into more detail. We wanted to have a system that can be deployed in an easy way. So really the only prerequisites for deploying a system based on our platform, which is called Flow, are an S3 compatible object store, the ability to run Docker containers, and TLS termination. On top of that platform, then you have various options for different applications. You know, I've mentioned CrossClave and OrbitSecure as two of the applications that we've built, and we also are open for custom development based on what customers need. Now, the technology stack really sits in two parts: the Flow app and the Flow core. The Flow core works to do things like the dynamic policy and key rotation. The Flow app handles many of the fancy magic cryptography things. And you can see on the left-hand side, the bottom left, the Flow server is where these things run. And the server controls everything from the way that blocks are stored in the S3 object store, the way that they're served based on the information the Flow app sends back, garbage collection, accounting, session tokens. These are all handled in a very generic environment. So as long as you have Linux that can run Docker and an S3 compatible object store that have some type of network, secure network link, then you can run this system. So this means, in addition to our SaaS, our commercial SaaS system and GovCloud, it's very easy to deploy this system on an internal network or on any arbitrary hardware that you can connect to a network, and it just does its thing and it runs. So we wanted to talk through a couple of different zero trust based use cases. One of the keys that I want to emphasize again whether this is in a public cloud deployment or an on-premise deployment, we feel that the only way to have effective security is for the data itself to be secured. So this is not build higher walls or dig deeper moats. We want to actually secure the individual pieces of data. And this harkens back to our zero knowledge encryption background. All data is secured on the endpoints before leaving an end user device. So we tried hard to push the security down to the level of the endpoints so that the rest of the system, the transiting across the network, the backend system, these all stay in a zero trust state. You don't need to trust the system admins or anybody who is running the infrastructure. They don't have access to any plain text data whatsoever. The only thing they need to do is ensure uptime and availability. The rest of the system is completely zero trust. So this gives some interesting options specifically for working in hybrid environments. I'm sure that all of you have a good hold on how you do secure collaboration within your internal networks. The thing that CrossClave does really well is it gives you options across networks. And again, we assume that all networks are untrusted. So for remote workers or workers in satellite offices, this gives a way to cross the line between internal and external networks in a secure way. And with on-premise installations of CrossClave, we respect the network protocols and policies by nature of being installed in the network. So should you open it up so that external people are able to connect to the back end, that would ensure that the data that's transited across that barrier stays secure. One thing we've seen with quite a few of our government contacts is a desire to have cross-domain collaboration and even cross-national collaboration. Working across multiple agencies is difficult. I'm sure all of you have experienced that moment when you try to join a Teams call and you are not part of the Active Directory that you need to be part of to join that Teams call. And so you get that beautiful screen from Microsoft saying that you're going to have to connect through the browser or something like that. CrossClave is an elegant solution to that situation, that you're able to have users on arbitrary networks that connect to the same system and the data within the system stays secure. All right, at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Matt, and he'll take you through some more information as well as a demo of CrossClave.
Thanks, Adam. So just a couple more slides here before we get into the demo. As Adam mentioned, the kind of secret sauce here at SpiderOak is that platform that our applications are built on, right? So we're a security first organization. And what I mean by that is security is never bolted on or added in a later date. All of our applications are built with security as the top priority. And then everything else kind of falls in line after that. And some of the language here is a little bit more focused on the OrbitSecure side of things, but the same technology and principles do apply on the CrossClave side of things as well. So being able to dynamically add and remove users, ensure that people are getting that information on a need to know basis, and then not relying on any sort of untrusted network or internal infrastructure that may be compromised or have some sort of bad actor in place that may be able to access data that they shouldn't be accessing. Event source state management, right? So each of these entities and spaces that you'll see in CrossClave, right, is not only its own public-private key pair, but also its own private blockchain. So any access given within that space to those end users is only visible by the assigned people to the specific space, and not even the admin within that organization can just place themselves within a space to go snooping around or go find something that they may be looking for, nor can anybody here at SpiderOak access your account in any manner and gain visibility into that plain text data at any time. Adam did a great job earlier, kind of just outlining the three main principles that our technologies are built on within the kind of the data segmentation, and then identity management being number one, then the key management as well. And I'll show you a couple of use cases here in a few moments of how and when those keys are rotated to ensure top level security. The flexibility is what's really great within CrossClave, right? Not only from the end user side of things being easy to use, but able to, kind of spin up these different spaces on the fly and on the go, dependent on, the projects that you're working on or what may come up, throughout your day. So each of these different spaces, right, is its own individual distributed ledger. It is a pretty lightweight application to install, both via the cloud, and we do have an on-prem option as well. And as we talked about, right, the key management is all kind of taken care of behind the scenes to ensure that nobody's going to be accessing any sort of data for future, communications or files once removed from a specific space or a team. Let me exit out of here for a moment, and we'll get over to the team for the demo. Initially, right, as Adam said, CrossClave is available across all platforms and devices. Great part of being a SAP application, right, is the real-time updating. So anytime people are added, changes are made within a specific space or a team, it's all done instantly in real time. There's no sort of lag or downtime from when those changes are made. To get signed up for CrossClave, you create a subscription on our site. At the time that you activate the subscription, what you'll receive as the initial owner of the team is a license key. And this is very important to, from a back-end perspective, to allow us to point the data in the right direction, whether that's going to be on-prem or the cloud. You go ahead to create a team here. And if I've already created one, you just simply enter that license key or scan the QR code and spin up name the team and determine whatever is most appropriate for that team name. So here's a demo team I've created on the left side. If I go into my settings here, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and add a user. So you'll find some of these other teams that I'm a part of that are actually live teams here internally at SpiderOak. But I'll select the demo team here, and I'll go into my team directory. And as of this moment, it's only this initial admin account that created the team listed as the owner. We have one other user who's active, Bruce Wayne, who's currently just a member of the team. If I wanted to go ahead and add somebody else, and we'll add Matt Geary here today, we'll create that invitation. Now, as the owner of the team, you have two options to send over to that individual to get them active within the team. There's a one-time invitation code, kind of a temporary password, if you want to think of it that way, of a string of randomized words here. But I think the easiest way to do it is just to have the QR code. And I'll go ahead and pull up an Android device here, as you can see. And I have CrossClave installed. And once installed on the mobile device or the desktop, they'll see that same screen we just saw earlier, join a team or create a team. In this case, I will just select join a team, scan the QR code. And you'll notice kind of in the background there, Matt Geary went from a pending invitation within the team to a member. Permissions can be set, not only at the space level, which we'll get to, but here at the team level as well. Kind of the general role is just a team member. We have the owner, who's the initial creator of the team. And then there's also an admin role, which gives you a little bit more privilege and the ability to change other team members' role within the team, as well as remove members from the team. So we'll go back here now. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is create what we call spaces. And again, these are those cryptographic compartments only visible to the users on that need to know basis. So as you can see, I've created a team on the left, and we'll just, for demo purposes today, go ahead and add another space here. And then you can come in and add team members as needed. Once in the space, so go back out and select the people. We're going to add Matt to that space, at which time then on the mobile device here, what I would see is that space appear within my CrossClave app. Let me just get back in with the code. And to let everybody within that space know I've received the invitation and accepted. I'll go ahead and add a quick chat. Oops. And you'll see that chat then does appear within the chat window. The primary use case and what CrossClave is kind of intended to do is to, securely communicate, collaborate, and store those files in an encrypted manner in one secure location. So you'll see you can build out a folder structure here that makes the most sense, within your department or your specific team, and begin to upload and add those files. And I'll go ahead and select the CrossClave demo folder here. And if we wanted to go ahead and upload another file, you can add one at a time or select multiple files to add into that folder. And then once added to that folder, anybody who is now part of this space would have immediate access to go in, view those, edit those, and change whatever may be needed as necessary. The next use case kind of want to walk through kind of falls in line with some of the collaboration use cases within a specific space. So here's a demo test file. I'm going to go ahead and just open this up. And these can be obviously anything. This is just a generic Excel sheet with contracts, reports, HR information, all great use cases to store and share via CrossClave. Once opened, as you saw, I made a couple of small changes. I will now save that updated version to my Mac. And then you'll notice on that specific file, there's the little upload with the cloud. If you go ahead and click that, the latest version that was then edited is now available to any of the users who are, again, within that space. What's really great here within each specific file is not only do we have the file details, as you can see here, when it was created, last modified, and also the size. But you'll also see the version history within that file. So any changes that have been made, you can see what specific user made that change at what time. And that really is useful, as Adam talked about some of the auditing and logging information that maybe need be pulled for, any sort of compliance or regulatory purposes there. The other common use case we see with a lot of organizations that we work with is kind of a secure sharing of a file that's maybe in sort of a one-off or a one-time use case to people who are outside of the team or completely outside of your organization. And how we handle that is with a secure send feature we call airlock. And this uses all the same kind of end-to-end encryption principles Adam talked about a little bit earlier. So we'll go ahead and continue. And then what you have to do is whoever is going to be the recipient of this specific file, you tell them to go to airlock.cc, and I'll pull up my browser. Enter that 3-word phrase. And just that easily, I was able to go ahead and download that file without having any sort of CrossClave account. The importance of key management and how those are rotated anytime, any sort of policy or changes made within a team or a space is very useful and important. And for whatever reason, let's say Matt no longer needed access to this particular space because the contract or the project had ended, simply just go ahead and remove Matt from the space, at which point the keys are changed and rotated, and not going to really affect Bruce or the demo admin here, but it's just good to ensure that that level of security is applied when those changes are made. Also, coming back to the settings within the team. Same thing here. If you wanted to completely remove a member from the team, or maybe even give Matt some sort of admin or owner type of role, the admin role would allow that individual to change and kind of promote people's roles up to an admin type of role within spaces or the team to give them a little bit more privilege. But we'll go ahead and remove Matt. And once again, that key rotation is taking place in the background without having to have the end user or anybody within your organization change manually. As you can see, you can create multiple teams. It is pretty simple to spin up separate teams, for different organizations or different projects that you may be working on. And that can be done very easily. You go back to the login portal for our site. And what you do is just add and access an additional license key that would give you the ability to once again, just create a new team here really easily and invite the appropriate people that may be a part of your organization, or as Adam mentioned, one of the best use cases for CrossClave is kind of that the cross-domain communication and collaboration in those unsecure, unsafe networks, eliminating that trust of the existing infrastructure, and just give you the assurance that you're using the top of the line security that CrossClave does choose to offer. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And we'll pull up the last couple of slides here before we get to the questions that I can see. I'm assuming those are questions up there in the chat. Just kind of as a quick recap, right? The two applications that we are offering today, along with kind of that custom scenario Adam touched on, SpiderOak, OrbitSecure, which does focus a little bit more on the space side of things, both with the government and commercial space companies, to assure that communication is done in a totally encrypted manner from ground to space and eliminate any of the threats that may be in between. And then on the CrossClave side of things, more of a human to human collaboration tool. We have seen a lot of success with the government supply chain and just smaller organizations, larger organizations that do not want to have any ties to that existing infrastructure, whether that's AD or something else they may be using from like an LDAP standpoint, is dependent on the organization, but this does give you an easy and quick option to spin up new teams and new spaces and get the appropriate information to the people that need to access it. That's any questions or thoughts or feedback for myself or Adam? I can stop the share.
Awesome. Well, if there aren't any questions, I'm going to stop recording.